Right now, at this very moment somewhere in the world, someone is saying something they will deeply regret. Maybe it's happening in a boardroom, maybe at a kitchen table, maybe in a text message being typed and retyped with shaking hands. And here's what's terrifying. That person doesn't know they're about to make a mistake, because in the heat of the moment, words feel necessary. Words feel like power. Words feel like the only weapon available. But what if I told you the most powerful thing a human being can do in any high-stakes moment is say absolutely nothing? Not because you're weak, not because you don't have anything to say, but because you've learned what the greatest minds in human history discovered thousands of years ago. Silence is not the absence of strength. It is the highest expression of it. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth. He could have commanded anyone to do anything. And yet, in his private journals, words he never intended for anyone to read, he wrote endlessly about the discipline of restraint, the discipline of choosing not to speak. Epictetus, a man who was born a slave, who had everything taken from him, became one of the most influential philosophers in history, not by speaking louder than his oppressors, but by developing an inner world so unshakable that their words simply couldn't reach him. This is Stoicism, and today we're going to explore its most underrated, most misunderstood, and most life-changing teaching. The 9 specific moments when choosing silence isn't just smart, it's transformational. By the end of this video, you will never look at a silent pause the same way again. You'll understand exactly when to use it, why it works, and how it can protect your peace, your reputation, and your relationships in ways that words never could. Let's begin. Before we get into the 9 moments, we need to understand what Stoic silence actually is, because it is not what most people think. Stoic silence is not giving someone the cold shoulder, passive aggression, avoidance or fear, suppressing your feelings until you explode. Stoic silence is a deliberate, conscious choice, an active strategy, not a passive retreat, a demonstration of who is actually in control, the space between stimulus and response, the space where wisdom lives. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, said something that should be tattooed on every human being's wrist. Better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. Read that again. He's not saying never speak. He's saying, be more careful with your words than you are with your physical steps. Because a stumble with your feet, you recover in seconds. A stumble with your words, you may spend years trying to undo the damage. The ancient Stoics believed that the truly powerful person is not the loudest person in the room. The truly powerful person is the one who has full command over what comes out of their mouth and what doesn't. Now, let's explore the 9 moments where this command becomes your greatest asset. Has someone ever attacked your work, your character, or your choices? Not with facts, but with frustration? Not with evidence, but with ego? This happens everywhere. In offices, in families, in comment sections, in relationships. And in that moment, every instinct you have fires at once. Defend yourself. Prove them wrong. Make them see. Marcus Aurelius addressed this directly. He wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And in his meditations on criticism, he returned again and again to this truth. It is never the criticism itself that wounds you. It is your reaction to it. Here's what most people don't understand about unfair criticism. When you respond defensively and immediately, you give the criticism power. You confirm it matters. You confirm it reached you. But when you go silent, when you take a measured breath, hold your posture, and choose not to engage, you signal something far more powerful. I am not moved by this. Epictetus taught that we should separate what is up to us from what is not. What other people say about you, not up to you. How you respond, entirely up to you. The practical application is this. When unfair criticism lands, do not react in the room. Pause. Let the silence breathe. If a response is truly required, give it later, after you've filtered out the noise and found the signal. Ask yourself, is there anything useful buried in this attack? Take that. Discard the rest. This isn't passivity. This is precision. The amateur defends every accusation. The Stoic only acknowledges what's worth acknowledging. Your silence in the face of unfair criticism is not weakness. It is a declaration. I will not be pulled off course by noise. Let me paint you a scene. You're at a networking event, or a dinner party, or a work meeting, and someone in the room starts performing. Big salary numbers, fancy vacations, name drops that could fill a phone book, the car, the house, the deal they just closed, and something stirs in you, the urge to match it, to one-up, to remind everyone that you also have value. You also have accomplishments. You are not less than this person. Stoicism has a sharp answer to this, don't. Not because your accomplishments aren't real, but because the need to announce them in that moment reveals something far more uncomfortable, that you are seeking external validation to feel worthy. The Stoics called this the trap of reputation. They made a clear distinction between actual virtue and the performance of virtue, between genuine achievement and the announcement of achievement. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." When someone is bragging at you, they are performing for the crowd. If you join them in that performance, you've accepted their terms. You've agreed that this is how worth is measured, by who can claim the most in a single conversation. But if you go quiet, if you simply smile, acknowledge their moment, and let your presence speak for itself, you've done something remarkable. You've walked out of the game entirely, and people notice. They notice the person who doesn't need to prove themselves. They're the most magnetic person in the room. Let your work be your announcement. Let your character be your resume. And let your silence, in those moments, be the most eloquent thing you say all evening. This one might be the most important lesson in this entire video. So stay with me. Anger is not your enemy. Anger is information. It's telling you that something has violated your values, your boundaries, or your expectations. The problem is not the anger itself. The problem is what most of us do with it. Immediately, impulsively, without pause, we speak. And the words that come out of an angry mouth are almost never the words we would choose in a calm state. They're sharper, crueler, more absolute, and they cut in ways that take years to heal. Sometimes they don't heal at all. Marcus Aurelius asked himself, how much worse are the consequences of anger than the circumstances that triggered it? Read that again slowly. In almost every case, the aftermath of an angry reaction is worse than whatever caused the anger in the first place. You say something in 5 seconds that cost you 5 years. So what do the Stoics prescribe? The pause, the deliberate, disciplined, uncomfortable pause. When you feel anger rising, recognize it. Name it internally. I am angry right now. That single act of naming activates the rational brain and gives a fighting chance against the emotional reaction. Then do not speak. Not yet. Take the space. Breathe. Ask yourself, what is my anger actually protecting? What value of mine feels threatened? And when I respond, if I respond, will I be speaking for my highest self or for my most wounded one? Think of Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison. Every reason in the world to emerge in rage, in bitterness, in revenge. And yet he walked out and chose reconciliation. Not because the anger wasn't justified, but because he understood that his response was the only thing that was still in his control. And he used that power to change a nation. Your anger, channeled through deliberate silence, becomes fuel for constructive action, not destructive reaction. The next time someone lights a fire inside you, pause. That pause is not weakness. That pause is you choosing who you want to be. False rumors are among the most disorienting human experiences. Someone is saying something about you that isn't true, and it's spreading, and people are believing it. Every fiber of your being screams, set the record straight, explain, defend, counter, and yet, Stoicism urges you to consider, what happens when you engage a rumor directly? You amplify it. You give it oxygen. You signal that it has the power to disturb you. And in the absence of a clean narrative, the very act of your defensive response often confirms the suspicion in the minds of casual observers. Marcus Aurelius put it simply, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The rumor is an outside event. You cannot control it once it's in the air. What you can control is how you move, how you work, how you treat people every single day, the actual evidence of who you are. Consider what happens when you simply continue. You keep doing your work. You keep showing up with integrity. You keep treating people with respect. And the rumor, starved of the reaction it needs to survive, begins to die on its own. This is not always comfortable. There will be moments when the silence feels unbearable, when you want to shout the truth. But ask yourself, who will people ultimately believe? The person who frantically defends their reputation, or the person who's consistent? Visible actions make the rumor look absurd? Let your life be your response. Let your character be your attorney. And let silence be your most effective counterargument. Loss is perhaps the most universal human experience, and it is one where silence is not chosen. It is imposed on us. When someone we love is gone, when a dream collapses, when a chapter we thought would last forever ends without warning, the world suddenly becomes very, very quiet, and our first instinct is to fill that silence with noise, with busyness, with distraction, with explanations to anyone who will listen. Stoicism asks us to sit with the silence instead. Seneca wrote, "The day we fear will be our last is actually the birthday of eternity." The Stoics did not ask us to deny grief. They were not cold-hearted intellectuals dismissing human emotion. They were deeply realistic about the nature of life, that everything we love, we will one day lose. And rather than seeing this as a curse, they saw it as the very thing that makes love and life precious. C.S. Lewis, writing about the loss of his wife, said, "The pain I feel now is the happiness I had before." That's the deal. That is Stoic wisdom in modern clothing. The depth of the grief is the measure of the love. Do not run from one to avoid the other. In the silence that follows loss, let yourself feel it fully. Do not perform recovery for others. Do not rush toward moving on to make other people comfortable. In that stillness, there is processing. There is integration. There is the quiet work of the soul rebuilding itself. The Stoics remind us, what has been taken from us never diminishes what it meant while we had it. And the silence after loss is not emptiness. It is the sacred space where meaning is discovered. Here's a scenario that will feel familiar. You are in a conversation with someone who is absolutely, confidently, completely wrong, and they don't know it, and nothing you say seems to land. Every fact you offer is dismissed. Every piece of evidence is reframed. What do? The Stoic answer is, choose your battles with precision. Galileo Galilei knew the earth moved around the sun. He had the mathematics, the observations, the evidence, and yet the institutions of his day rejected him, persecuted him, placed him under house arrest. Did he rage against every ignorant voice? Did he engage every critic? No, he documented his findings. He trusted that truth would eventually survive. and he refused to let the noise of willful ignorance consume the clarity of his mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." You cannot force someone to understand what they are not yet ready to understand. You cannot compel growth in another person by sheer force of argument. And wasting your energy trying to do so is one of the greatest productivity drains in human life. The graceful response to ignorance is not silence born of contempt. It is silence born of discernment. You choose where your energy goes. You choose which conversations are worth having, and you trust that your consistency, your work, and your results will speak in places where words cannot reach. Save your arguments for the people who are genuinely listening. For everyone else, let your life make your case. Gossip is different from rumors. Rumors are false stories with no clear origin. Gossip is the active, ongoing discussion of your personal life, your choices, your struggles, by people who weren't invited into that conversation. And it stings in a way that's hard to articulate, because it's not just that they're talking about you, it's that they're defining you with incomplete information. The Stoic response is one of the most counterintuitive in all of philosophy. Epictetus said, "If someone speaks ill of you, and it's true, fix yourself. If it's a lie, laugh at it." Laugh at it, not sarcastically, not bitterly, genuinely, because gossip about you that isn't true is a lie about a fictional character. It is not about you. It is about the story they've constructed in their heads. And nothing dismantles a gossip cycle faster than the target of it simply not caring. When you don't take the bait, when you don't launch a counter-campaign, when you simply continue living with integrity and purpose, you make gossip irrelevant. You rob it of its power source. The community leader who kept working for environmental justice, despite the gossip around her personal motives, her silence and continued service eventually made the rumors look absurd. People who doubted her saw her actions and recalibrated. Your actions are a louder, longer, more durable statement than anything you could say in self-defense. Let gossip exhaust itself. You have better things to spend your energy on. This is where Stoic silence gets the most complicated and the most powerful, because silence in the face of injustice sounds, on the surface, like complicity, like acceptance, like cowardice. But the Stoics were not passive in the face of wrongdoing. Marcus Aurelius, as emperor, worked tirelessly to reform Roman law and improve conditions for slaves and the poor. Epictetus, as a former slave, advocated for human dignity with every breath. What the Stoics rejected was not action, it was reactive, ego-driven, destructive response. There's a difference between speaking from wisdom and speaking from wounds. Nelson Mandela is the defining modern example. Decades of imprisonment, every reason in the world for rage, for retribution, for making his enemies suffer the way he suffered. And instead, he chose a silence, a pause, before responding. He processed, he considered, he asked, what response will actually move things forward? And from that deliberate silence came one of the most powerful acts of leadership in the 20th century. Epictetus taught, bear and forbear. Not forever, not without limit, but as a first practice, absorb, endure, and from that stillness, choose your response. When you face injustice, the silence is not your final answer. It is the preparation for your response. It is the space where you decide whether your action will be driven by wisdom or by pain. The most powerful advocates for change in human history were not the most reactive. They were the most strategic. And strategy requires silence before action. The final lesson, and perhaps the sharpest test of everything we've discussed today. Someone insults you, directly, deliberately, in front of others. Every social instinct you have fires immediately. Respond, defend, match their energy, or exceed it. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. Read that again. If they got to you, part of you allowed it. And this isn't a critique, it's a revelation, because it means that you have more power than you realized. If your reaction is, in some measure, a choice, then you can choose differently. Gandhi faced insults, public mockery, physical abuse during his decades of peaceful resistance. His response was almost always the same: composed, quiet, immovable. And that composure unnerved his opponents more than any retaliation could have, because an insult is designed to trigger a specific response. It expects you to either crumble or explode. When you do neither, when you remain still, present, and unaffected, you break the script entirely. The person who insulted you wanted your chaos. They wanted proof that they could move you. Your silence is the ultimate denial of that proof. And there is something else. The quality of your silence communicates your character louder than a sharp comeback ever could. Everyone watching sees a person who is larger than the provocation, who has nothing to prove, who is complete in themselves. That is the Stoic ideal, not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of what you do with it. We have walked through 9 of the most challenging moments a human being can face, and in every single one, the Stoics offer the same foundational insight. You cannot control what happens to you. You can only control how you respond. And sometimes, the most powerful response available to you is the one that uses no words at all. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write about Stoicism. He practiced it. In a life filled with war, loss, betrayal, and the impossible pressure of running an empire, his parting words for us today: don't waste time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. Not with speeches, not with announcements, with your life, with your choices, with your silence, when silence is the truest thing you can offer. If this video shifted something in you, share it. Someone in your life needs to hear this today. And in the comments, tell me, which of these 9 moments is your greatest challenge? Where does silence feel hardest for you to hold? I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, be still, be wise, be powerful,